Okay. What's wonderful is everybody who's contributing wants to learn something about swimming, so we're in the right place. So that's always a good start. About 1 more minute, and then I will do a formal introduction and get us started. Hey, Christina, I'm glad you're here. Oh, so cool. And a few more workout and exercises. All right. All right, well, I'm going to start with my formal introduction. My name is Sue Sotir. I am with Breakthrough Performance Coaching up in the Northeast. I'm in New Hampshire, near the seacoast. Right now, we are the plan for today is to touch on what we're all facing, is that we don't have water we can get into. Maybe some of you folks down south are able to start to get to open water, but even there's questions and concerns. So today, we're going to try and change a few things that will work better on land than they can ever work on water. For today, what do you need? If you want to play along with some of the exercises, you're going to need a floor and a mat and maybe some bands if you have them. If you don't worry about it. We'll touch on some alternatives, and nothing will work perfectly well too. My format is I'm going to talk a little bit. I called this Brains and Brawn for a reason. We don't get a lot of chances to learn about swimming, and so we're going to talk a little. Then we're going to do some exercises to support the needs of swimming. Not all of them are going to look like swimming, but they are all designed or intended or selected to support your ability to have an effective swim. And then a little more talking and a few more exercises. I would love for you to use the chat feature as we go along and keep asking questions so that I can address those as I'm going. And if I miss it, I'm a human, just ask it again. Don't let me overlook something that you really want to know. I'm going to start with a screen share. Then I'm going to pull the screen share back while we do some exercises so that I can do some demo. And if you want to turn your videos on, then I can even offer a little bit of feedback for what I can see. And then I'll go back to the screen share and then back to the exercises. I'm going to get that share started so that we can start to work our way through things. And somebody hit the chat if you cannot see what I can see. I am hoping that you are looking at a screen that shows basically a circle, right? A flow chart, if you will, right? Where does your swim come from? It comes from a lot of places. And the first place it starts off with is up in here, the what do you know? You all have a model in your head that directs what you choose to do with your swimming. Right? It also directs what you choose not to do with your swimming. And it's what you compare what you're doing against what it is you think you're supposed to be doing. That model is a place we don't often spend a lot of time on. And we're going to spend some time on that model today because we have an opportunity to either refine our model or confirm that the model we're using is effective. The next piece that we sort of move forward to is the what you can do. Physically, we all come from different backgrounds. We have different training histories. We're of different ages. We are able to do different things well. And what you are able to do in terms of range of motion, how much control you have in executing each movement, the separate motions of swimming, how well you're able to adjust forces, how quickly you're able to adjust forces, how smoothly you sequence your actions, all of those things impact what you can do in the water. Land is a phenomenal place to develop those. So even as we're sitting down here and starting to think about, all right, well, I can't get in the water, what can I do? Well, you know what? I can learn more about what I should be doing, and I can learn more about how my body actually moves and make it a more effective and supporter of those movements. Okay? The what you do usually piece, that really depends on you. And what you do usually determines what your fitness is. And fitness is your capacity to do what you want for as long as you want to be able to do it. And in the swim, what we're going to see is that forces outside of us have an impact on what we can do and how we can do it. And when we think about fitness, racing is all about our specific fitness, right? It's about being able to maintain what it is we've practiced in the environment of the race. And it's going to cost us some percentage of energy or some percentage of effort. If less of our work is coming from just trying to hold our bodies in place and more of our work is driven towards moving us forward, that's a win. And then we still have to come down to execution. What do you actually do once you're out there versus what you know and what you're capable of doing? When we look at the what you know piece, there's a lot of information that goes into it, but our models for most of us typically encompass two ideas. They are drag and propulsion. Reduce drag, increase propulsion. That's generally what we want to be doing. And when we talk about drag, we're talking about a whole lot more than just something going on in front of us. So that's where we're going to go next, with any luck. Hopefully. There it is. So drag. Yes, I brought up a science equation. You can count this as science homework for some of you who are still in school. This is an equation for force drag or fluid drag. If you take a look at the different pieces of it, we'll look at the different components, but the one I want to direct our attention to right here is the V. That's velocity, speed. Take a look at that. As your velocity increases, your drag increases exponentially. You want to increase your speed. That's a given. We don't want to spend our time in the water going slower. We want to go faster. But if going faster means more drag, that means we're going to be working harder. So we have to bring our attention to these other factors in this equation. And each one of those other factors, we have some influence we can exert. The first factor is this 1/2, the little p is a rho. This is the actual coefficient of drag for water. Okay? All different types of water have different types of resistance. Warm water has a different resistance than cold water. Chlorinated water has a different resistance than salt water. Okay? Those pieces we really can only control with our knowledge and what we're wearing to a certain degree. But there's another feature that isn't accounted for in this particular equation that's really important to us as triathletes. If you look over to the left at the pool, most of our swimming, for many of us, is done in the pool. And we really only deal with drag in one direction. We push forward, we swim forward, and that drag or the resistance from the water pushes straight back against us. We don't have to manage a lot of stuff. So our bodies don't have to do a lot of adapting and adjusting. We can focus on just push and push and push and push it. When we get into open water, we're still, as we push forward, the water pushes back. But now there's other things that we're dealing with, side forces from waves, from currents. For bike riders, for cyclists, you may have heard of yaw. Same idea applies in the water. Yaw is a side force that is being applied that's trying to move you in a direction other than where you want to be going, which is forward. Same in the water. And you have to be able to support your body and adjust your stroke in ways that allow you to compensate for that. If you're going faster, those side currents have less of an impact. For folks who are a little slower, wow, does that effect go up. You get pushed around a whole lot more. Your body has to be able to adjust and support you in your forward motion, even in this more complex environment. And it only gets worse when we go racing, because then Those forces are coming in from all sorts of different directions, constant disruption, which means constant adjustments from our body. From there, we have to start thinking about how we approach the water. One of the components of that force drag equation that we can impact is CD. It's coefficient of drag. Again, if you ride a bike, you are concerned with coefficient of drag, whether you know it or not. Very few of you will ride in an upright position on your bike because it's not aero. You ride down in an aerodynamic position, positioned on your aero bars, creating a teardrop shape so that as you push forward into the air, it slips by you with less resistance. Your work becomes more productive. Well, how about the water? The water is almost 800 times more dense than air. How much attention and intention are you putting into how you're interacting with that water in front of you? If we take a look, there are different shapes people create as they intersect that water in front of them. Some are more rectangular, which is less aero. It's much more like sitting up on the hoods of the bike and riding into the wind. And some are more teardrop shaped. We typically will call them streamline. Really, it's more of a half streamline type shape that we create. One definitely has less turbulence than the other. But even within a single person, that coefficient of drag is constantly shifting. Now, if we think about that, you have to maintain that teardrop or half streamline shape. You need to be physically capable of making it in the first place. You need the control and body coordination to be able to do this on demand, the strength to be able to support it, and then you have to be able to support it through all of these changing orientations as you shift side to side, as you stroke side to side. And the degree to which you're able to create a supportive body line impacts how much force you can really create. I'm sure on the internet somewhere you've seen somebody doing a squat on a Bosu ball or on a Swiss ball. Right? Anytime you have a softer base, you can't exert as much force. So how we work from our body outward has a huge impact on how effective any model of stroke we're carrying in our head can be. And why am I harping on this? Because this is where we're going to do our first part of work. But we're going to look at one more area first, because there is one other part of that equation we can impact, and that's the A. The A stands for frontal area. Right? Frontal area is the perpendicular depth of your body in the water. And it goes from fingertips to tiptoes, everything along that body line. And again, it is constantly changing along both the line of the body and around the axis of rotation. So that line that goes down your body, that your body rolls around, you have to be able to maintain that, as well as trying to maintain something that goes a little closer to this top line and a little less of that uphill style of swimming. And that means you need to be able to transfer energy and strength up and down from upper body to lower body, as well as having some awareness of the pressure in the position that you are taking. Okay? So in order to work the drag equation, you want to minimize your shapes that you're presenting to the water in front of you and perpendicularly, depth-wise, as you go fast. Here's where I want to impact your model a little bit. Okay? We want to start thinking and prioritizing the interaction with the water in front of us, the base of support that we're creating, how we're initiating our movements, how well we're controlling them, how well we're able to shift through the timing, because that's a huge efficiency, and then how responsive we are able to be to what's going on around us. And if we're only focused on hammering our fingertips through the water, then we're not going to be as readily responsive to what's going on around us. And yet that's important. How are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do some on-land work. I know a few folks mentioned different things to do with bands. We will get to those. These are some body weight exercises that require nothing more than just a little bit of space and a whole lot of patience. Ready to play along? The first one, and I'm happy to share any of these slides as we go through, but the first one that is on the list is called independent torso rotation. If we think about what that means, it means you need to be able to shift your body without using your arms or your neck. Hoping you can see me from here. If you can't, put a little something in that chat window. Okay. Independent body rotation. Try this at home. Can you move your shoulders and your torso as one unit without making your arms do it and without making your neck do it? And then can you speed it up? If we're in this orientation, if we're in this positioning, okay, our shoulder is moving forward in front towards our chin. Nate, that is awesome. Beautifully done. And as that happens, this would be going towards the bottom of the pool, the bottom of the lake, the bottom of something. What we tend to see more of, or in swimming we see quite a bit of, is up and down instead of front and back. This is an important skill to practice on land because we can look in a mirror and actually accomplish it. Keith, what I'm seeing is a whole lot of chest out. If you can kind of tuck your belly in line with your chest bone and then do it more of the shimmy, there you go. The initiation of it is something that when you take it into the water becomes quite challenging. There we go. I missed name down here, but beautiful. And then being able to do that lightly and quickly, that sets the tempo and timing of your stroke. If you find it challenging to move in a high tempo way, it's going to be really hard to do it in the water in a high tempo way. I think one of the things we get caught in is the idea that we have to do this massive rotation. And I think what we're going to see is that you can rotate quite a lot very quickly and not get bound down. Do this one in the mirror or videotape yourself doing it. Oh, Nate, that's awesome. Beauty. Okay. Next one, if you're playing along at home, I'm going to have you lie down on the floor. This next exercise I call side lying, and it looks like it's going to be ridiculously simple. I'm going to move the computer down with me, right down to here. And all you're going to do is just start off by laying on your stomach. Change that orientation a bit. There we go. One arm out, one arm back, head kind of neutral. And all I want you to do is to just come up and lie on your side and find your balance on your side. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to move your head and still maintain that side lying body. It's far more challenging than people give it credit for, but it is in that cycle of what you know versus what you can do. If you cannot find side lying balance on land with feedback from the ground and your own body being able to look into a mirror, a video, a camera, it's going to be a whole lot harder in the water where you don't have feedback. So independent torso rotation, side lying. Next one, this is usually where people celebrate with joy. Side planks. Side planks create strength between the upper torso and the lower torso. They create that connection, and they improve your control, your coordination. Sort of the starter, the intro level, knees on the ground, elbow on the ground, stacked under your shoulder. Okay. Find your way here. Then bring one foot out, bring your other foot out. You want to be able to hold that position. And then as you become more adept and stronger, you can take that position up to a straight arm and one foot stacked on the other, and eventually to one arm straight up in the air. Doesn't look like swimming, but it creates that underlying supportive strength. What I love to have my athletes do is work up to 45 seconds of that, and doing that twice. Eventually, if you can get higher than that, it's only going to help you as you go forward. One of the things that happens in that choppy water when there are people swimming around you is your body has to keep adjusting along that line. The more strength you have, the more ability you have to be able to access that strength. That helps a lot. All right. Ready to go to the next one? Take a look, make sure there are no questions so far. Okay. Working to be able to maintain a straight body line while moving your arms takes work, takes support. So that the next exercise that I would recommend for on land is called a plank with an arm march. So many of you have probably done a plank before. This is just a nice low plank on your elbows. You want your hips in a nice straight line, not too bent, not too squishy, that nice straight line. And then with the arm march, you reach one arm out in front of you and bring it back. And then the other one out in front of you and bring it back. I'm going to challenge you to do 10 of those and see how that goes. Now what I'm seeing is a few folks are shifting left and right. Try and keep your body line straight and adjust your arm. There you go. That one is one that I find personally extremely challenging. As you work up to that, if you needed to scale it back a little bit, you can widen your feet or do it from your knees. If you needed to scale it up, you can go to one foot or crossing that foot over the back. Okay. Next, oh, there we go, cool. Got a couple more folks trying. It's fun because you can feel your body starting to roll in opposition to those arms. The same thing happens in the water. Being able to create what's called an anti-rotational strength allows you to be in charge of where you move, as opposed to just being reactionary and reacting because the water is swishing around. I got a request to demonstrate that again. Sometimes I wonder, you know, how amusing I look, but we'll go with it. So finding that body line, finding a nice low plank position, elbows stacked under shoulders, hips straight so that the line between your rib cage and your knees is as straight as you can hold. And then just reach out in front, come back, reach out in front, come back. And then we've got one more plank. This one starts to actually deliberately challenge your ability to rotate or to move rotationally. If you're in control of it from your body, you're always going to have more strength than if you are just reacting to your arms. Starting position can either be knee down or a full side plank. You're going to reach up. You're going to reach under. You're going to come back and come back to that solid position again. And I would try and do that for 30 seconds or 8 to 10. Here we go. Got a couple folks trying it. As you reach under, try and think about having your top shoulder reach under the shoulder that's supporting you, so it becomes a true body rotation. And let those hips go with you. We want, ideally, we want body rotation to involve that whole longitudinal line. So we're coming under and back from the body more than the arm. The arm is the reaction, the body is the creation. And it's way harder to talk in a plank with a reach under than you would think. Final exercise in this list is a bird dog. I don't know how many folks are familiar with a bird dog, but a bird dog is about length. Swimming, as we think about it, is about length. Bird dog, take a tabletop position or position on all fours with a nice flat back, belly zipped up. One arm reaches forward and the opposite leg reaches back. One of the sort of challenges on this one, we see a lot of people try to go for height. This is about length and strength. You want to be rock solid in this position and then come back down. And then the other side, and then back down. Oh, it's beautiful. Go a little more for length, Nate. That is lovely right there. How long to hold the length? I like to hold for a count of 1 or a count of 1,000 to 1,000. Something where you're just practicing being solid, using that isometric contraction to build strength as well as awareness of the position. Holding it for longer, I could see some benefit, but if you hold it for 1,000 or 1,000 to 1,000, you're gonna get both the positional benefit as well as the isometric challenge, the strength challenge. And then repeating that for about 30 seconds to 45 seconds. All of those exercises combined all work basically from the neck to the knees. If we think about swimming from the perspective of drag reduction, the way we're going to control it along the body line is from neck to knees. That's where that control comes from. That's where the stability comes from. That's where the strength comes from. In order for us to create this strong vessel to move through the water, this kind of work on land supports it. That's great, Sue. Love hearing it. But what about propulsion? Let's take a look at propulsion. Unless anybody has any other questions right here for right now. All right. I'm going to share my screen again. Hopefully everybody is seeing that. Pull the chat up so I can see that. And propulsion. Okay. Move your arms, right? That's swimming. I wish that were swimming. I wish it were so easy. Okay. Move my computer back up here a little bit. When we think about creating propulsion, what we need to do is go back to high school physics, or in some cases advance to high school physics, and think about where we need to push in order to move in a particular direction. Okay? If we want to move forward, we need to push back. If you take a look at the lines that I've added over here to the right of the screen, there's some pale gray lines. Those all represent pushing straight back. There are very few places in most people's strokes where you're actively pushing straight back. When you start off and initiate, how long you push down for has an impact in how far you can push back. How quickly you get your arm oriented into a high elbow position impacts how straight you can push back and how long. We're going to look a little more at high elbow in a moment. And then how long you're able to sustain that pushback before you start pushing up or start getting ready for the recovery, all have an impact in how far you move forward. If we think about running, right, stride length times stride rate is how you move forward. That determines your pace. In the water, stroke rate and stroke length determine your pace, as well as how well you manage those forces in front of you. If you're creating very little forward motion, and my poor example swimmer here is creating only a very short space of forward motion, well, then you're only creating a short space of forward motion. I realize that's kind of a duh statement, but the reality is if you have to create some type of forward movement in order to move forward. Your arm moving through the water will do some, but you need a little bit more. And this is where that idea of high elbow kind of starts to come into play. And if we take a look here, it will never be perfect. There's always going to be some time when you are pushing down and some time when you're pushing up. There's no such thing as perfect in swimming. What there is, though, is timing. And if we take a look at timing, what we get in the front is a change of direction and very little force. Advance my way through here. We get a change of direction. Okay? The elbows bend, the forearms go down, the hand becomes part of the paddle surface area. I'm going to back that up a little bit. The high elbow is in place because of how it interacts with the back. If you have a straight arm, your shoulder takes the burden or the brunt of the work. If you bend your elbow, you are now able to have your back doing part of the work. And I'm in the wrong part of the video where I wanted to be. I apologize for that. I'm gonna go back. So if we take a look at this type of format or spacing, that elbow is doing the sweeping. That upper arm is doing the sweeping. The timing and the motion come from how you interact with your shoulder, that upper arm, and then the paddle that you can create, if that makes sense. When we talk about this in terms of swim words, we talk about the catch, and then usually we talk about either the pull or the push. I'm learning about bees. I don't know if anybody's a beekeeper, but we're gonna start keeping bees in a few weeks. We get our first bees. And apparently the joke with beekeepers is if you put 3 beekeepers into a room and ask them a question, you're gonna get 5 different answers. Well, if you put 3 swim coaches into a room and ask them if it's a push or a pull, you're gonna get 5 different answers. I go with the biomechanical definition of force. If the force is coming towards the center of your body, it's a pull. If it's going away from the center of your body, it's a push. So basically underwater, you're doing both. But when you're out here above your head, you don't have the ability to generate a lot of force. There are probably only a few people on this call who can do a pull-up, and probably even fewer who can do a lot of pull-ups. It takes an awful lot to be able to exert force above your head, but you can change direction. And then once you are bent elbows and somewhere around your face area, you can start to exert force, and then you can accelerate that force backwards. This is something we can work on dry land, because when we're in the water and we're trying to think and do, it is incredibly challenging to even find your positioning. Not to mention the fact when you see information, people talk about, oh, well, you should be at an angle of 100 degrees or 120 degrees, not 150, not that. On land, I can't find those angles to that degree of precision. But on land, I can see myself, I can watch myself. And if I have bands or cords, I can watch the line that I create as I'm doing it. This is where I use some bands, and this is definitely where I use some cords. So we're going to do a few more exercises that hopefully you can add a few to your routine that start to work and address on some of the ways your body moves. I'm going to stop the sharing here, go back to seeing all of us. Okay. The first thing I have on that list is shoulder motions. And this one, even if you're not on the floor, not playing along quite so much, I would try this one because it's really interesting to learn how your shoulder moves. Right? If we think about the shoulder, and I'm going to ditch back here a little bit. If we think about the shoulder, it's a ball and socket joint. All right, ball goes in the socket, it's allowed to move. If we move our arm behind our body, and I encourage you to move both arms behind your body, what you can see happening to me is my chest starts to go forward. If you're doing it, you're going to feel your chest start to go forward. You're also going to feel tension across your chest and tension in your upper back. If you are in a swimming position and you're swimming along and you are not rotating your body, getting your arm out of the water is in this tight position. One of the things that we do on the bike is make sure we have a clean chain. Okay? You want to have as little gunk in the system adding resistance as possible. Swim is the same. If I take that same shoulder and I instead move my arms to the side, along the side of my body, that tension across my chest and across my back decreases. And if I move that upper arm just a hair in front of the middle line of my body, and I do that same, I would call it a snow angel motion up here where I have snow. If I do that same motion, it starts to free up even more mobility. So someone asked the question earlier about shoulder flexibility, shoulder mobility. My guess, my instinct is that you have pretty much the mobility you need, but this allows you to access it better. By practicing different shoulder motions in front of a mirror or on video, you start to learn what feels right for a movement. And you start to learn things like this. So if I were to try and get my arm out of the water and reach back, well, that's going to push me down. If instead I torso rotate and lift, it's the same motion, I've just bent my elbow. Okay? Well, now it starts to get easier. And if I can do it even more in front of my body from this part of the bone, you may have heard the term swimming with your elbows. Well, now I can have a lot more range of motion. It seems like a really simple activity and not a workout at all. But when we talk about fitness, we talk about adaptations for the demands that we want to impose. If we want to swim, this will help us adapt how we move to swimming because we'll understand better how we move and what we can do and what we can't do. And then we can start to work our body into positions to allow us to do it better. Next piece, this is where I would use bands. And I have different options here. There's TheraBand that you can buy. I like a medium resistance TheraBand. I have a pair of stretch cords. It's a brand. Again, I have the medium resistance stretch cords. You can use, if you need to make do around your house, I made the suggestion the other day, pair of pantyhose. Something that has a little bit of stretch to it that you can anchor against something else. And if you don't have that, well, then just work the motion. The motion helps you learn the timing and control. When you were a kid, you learned how to throw a ball. Well, as a grown-up, we can learn how to swim. First piece to learn is the catch. If we're going to think about the catch, I'm going to use that arm. We're going to think about the catch. It's a change of direction as well as an elbow bend. It's like, what? Huh? That's an awful lot. Okay? Start off just by trying to bend your elbow. Start to work the catch just by bending your elbow. I'm not trying to grab any water. I'm not trying to do any force. All I'm trying to do is go from extended in front of me to bent elbow at the side of my shoulder. Extend, bend, extend, bend. That's That's it, nothing else. To turn that into a catch, all I do is roll this bone down a little bit. Change the orientation. Yeah, nice, Nate, beautiful. Right? So extend, elbow, direction. Extend, elbow, direction. And then bring it so it becomes closer to one motion. It's actually a series or a sequence. It'll never be one motion. If you want to do that with a cord, making sure you can see, I'm just going to wrap it around my hand. It doesn't need to be high tension. It just needs to be enough resistance that you can see if you are bringing that line straight back towards your hip. If it's going down, you know you're pushing down. If it's going side, you know it's pushing side. You just want to be able to create something that starts moving straight back. The second piece of that is then the force. This out here is low force, change of direction, a lot of coordination. Once you are about to here, it becomes much easier to press. And if we think about swimming as sweeping the elbow back and letting this extend the surface area, then it becomes something really effective in the water. Because all of a sudden, you're changing direction and then adding force. This is the forceful part. This is where to work strength. As we get further away from our body, well, again, this has less ability to produce force. It's further away from the shoulder, but it has a whole lot of ability to create acceleration. Think about throwing a baseball. You can accelerate the lower part of the arm quite rapidly. In swimming, that back end is also where you can generate the most acceleration. When you put this whole thing together, you can do what's called time at tempo or building fitness. A minute, just working the change of direction, the catch. A minute, just working the force. And if you noticed, I walked my feet in order to change the resistance on the band. And then speed, the whole thing. And if you're wondering if doing those chords is in any way similar to swimming, I have a couple athletes who wear heart rate monitors when they swim. And yeah, we can argue the faults of that. But over time, you get to see a strong pattern. Doing these chords, 1 minute at catch, 1 minute at force, 4 minutes at the entire tempo, we see a heart rate increase similar to that of swimming. And then I have my athletes do just the right arm. 1 minute at catch, 1 minute at force, 4 minutes at that full length practice. And then the same thing with the left arm. By creating this time at tempo, you can start to build the specific fitness using the specific motor pattern that you want to be accessing when you're in the water. It's another way to develop your skill of what you can do, make it what you usually do, and then build fitness on top of that. Side plank with an arm motion. I have that one on the list, and it's a challenge. Let me move us down. It can be done with a band or without a band. I usually recommend starting without a band, but taking your side plank position, extending above your head, catch, push. Just controlling that arm while you're in that sideline position. A little challenging to figure out, but once you get it, you got it. And then you can also work the return so that you work on your recovery as well. The last exercise I have on here, and I'm being conscious of time. The question was earlier was shoulder mobility as well as flexibility. Ankle mobility and flexibility are critical. Kicking in the swim for triathletes, it has been a long and argued element of the sport. You got to kick somewhat in order to maintain your balance and in order to maintain your forward movement in those dead spots in the stroke. And unlike cycling, we can't get rid of all the dead spots. Cycling, there's going to be a little bit. In the swim, there's always going to be dead spots. If you don't have contact with the water, you're moving backwards or staying still. Having a small kick, minimal but effective, directing force behind you, is a helpful tool in your toolbox. One of the best ways, easiest ways, safest ways to work on ankle mobility is to write the alphabet. All right, so when you have your foot out extended in front of you, just write capital letters all the way, ABCs, all the way to Z, and write them as big as you can, as if you were writing them on a blackboard. What you'll find is that there's spots or one leg or one ankle that isn't quite as flexy as the other, or doesn't have quite as much control, and you can develop that over time. Alphabets can be done 3, 4, 5 times a day, kind of wherever you fit them in. They're a great desk exercise, a great TV watching exercise, good way to get a little blood in the calves, all those things. But it also helps your feet become a productive part of the swim. Trying to check out questions as I go here. Taking this back into the water when we finally get there. I'm taking a breath because I want to say this the right way. We're going to be so excited to be able to get in the water and to feel like we are gaining fitness again. What I'm hoping is that you'll be able to come back to a model that reminds you that drag is a far bigger component to this than fitness. If you can continually reduce drag, if you can change how you interact with the water in front of you, if you can change how you support your body through that water, and you can change your responsiveness to that water, all of those controls give you command of your body in that substance that doesn't offer very much feedback or very good feedback, and allows you to work in a way that is more effective. And that means the fitness that you build becomes more translatable to what you want to accomplish when racing. Right? If we think about racing and we bring it back to that idea of the bike again, when we bike, if you bike with power, you think about intensity factor. How hard, what percentage of your threshold are you working at? In the swim, a very efficient, effective swimmer can be working at an intensity factor that is substantially lower than their competition, even at the same pace. That translates to more room for you on the bike and more room for you on the run. So using this time, not as a loss, but as a gain time, is something that we're being offered that we've never had the opportunity to be offered before in our pasts, because we're always getting ready for something. And if there's one thing that I can stress is adding this sort of dry land routine to your practice 2 times a week, even 3 times a week, you'll get in the water with an entirely different body command, which will make you or give you a platform to become an entirely different swimmer. That's what I'm hoping for you. What we have now is a few more minutes. What didn't I touch on? What do you wish was clearer? What questions do you have? Everybody has a swim question. If you want to do it privately, we can. And I'll just screech it out to the group. Any kick drills? Okay, yeah. For on-land kick drills, there's a couple things that you can do. We're gonna move again, sorry. So 2 of the things that you need for kicking, you need flexible ankles and you need a strong core support. lying on your back, supporting your hands underneath your hips, straightening your legs out, zipping up your belly so that it's nice and tight, and then little itty bitty up downs. Those flutters will make you quite coordinated. It will also make you quite strong. If you want to add a band to that, the best place to add a band is actually across, let me see if I can, sorry, put it over here. So if I were to take this band and I had a chair, which I just happen to have, I could tie this around the chair, create a little resistant space right there. And within this, I could get some feedback there as well. And then you can also do that same thing. If you have a Swiss ball, if you have one of those big inflatable balls, you can lay on one of those, use a surface for support, and lay on your belly and do the same thing with the flutter kick there. Those are two great ways to get some strength in your kick, especially if you follow it, if you do it ABCs before and ABCs after, gives you a good place to test out what you just practiced. Camera down, do it again. All right, so I've tied the band so that it's just a line across the chair. I would stretch inside here. I would take that same reclined back position and I would just flutter bounces off of that band. What it will do is just provide some feedback so that you get a sense of what your actual timing and force rate is. Does that help? Cool. Other questions? I saw do you know Hunter Kemper? I've met Hunter a few times. I admire everything he has done in the sport. He is a phenomenal, first of all, athlete, but also representative for the character that sport allows you to practice. Any other dry land, bring your swim to a new level questions? Well, thank you so much for spending time with me. If you do come up with any questions, Susan at breakthroughperformancecoaching.com, feel free to ask. Transitions, I think there's going to be another whole thing on that, more than what we could cover here today. I can share the slides, absolutely. If you shoot me that email, Susan, S-U-S-A-N, at breakthroughperformancecoaching.com. Longest email address ever, but one that's pretty easy to remember. Thank you all so much. Scott from Scott Hampton, yes it is. Sorry, let me. Oh. Awesome, thank you all. Thank you, Keith. The why and the how matter to me too very much. If you want to unmute Nate, go right ahead. You work with Hunter? You know Hunter?
Yeah, he's my friend.
Cool.
We were supposed to go to see him last month, but it got canceled because of COVID-19.
Yeah. Have you been able to write him a letter or send him an email or communicate with him?
Yeah, I've called him and sent him an email a couple of times.
Nice. What are you doing to get ready for when we can race again?
I've been like doing a short duathlon every day. And some days I do a long bike where it's like 16 to 14 miles.
Holy cow, man. Really?
Yeah.
Dang. As long as you're staying healthy, that's what's important. And are you getting your schoolwork done? Oh yeah, ask a schoolwork question, they're gone. My plan is just to kind of hang out until everybody checks out. If anyone has any questions, wants to type them or wants to unmute, please feel free.